All right, you're good.
Okay. Hello and welcome to the Baller Sports Dialogue podcast. It's your co-host Brandon Deutsch and Grant Mona. Sorry we're doing it remote today. If you're listening, you probably won't hear much of a difference. Maybe you will. Obviously, in studio recording is better quality. But at the end of the day, if you're seeing us right now on YouTube, if you're watching us in shorts, we are out here. Well, we wouldn't be clipping a video of our intro, but regardless, if you're watching us on YouTube, we're here over Zoom for the holiday season. We're over actually Riverside, but Zoom type of content, but a lot going on in the NBA. We had to do an emergency pod right now in the holiday season for all you guys with Baller Sports Dialogue. I want to start with the team I think is the best team in the NBA right now. A lot of people say it's the Celtics. I will never trust the Celtics till I see them win an NBA championship. They're an excellent regular season team, and they always choke. Any big game, you saw like Tatum get scared of Curry yet again. There's some things you just can't quantify. We look at statistics, we look at all that stuff. Jason Tatum this, Jason Tatum that. Jason Tatum is probably the weirdest basketball player on the planet because his stats look excellent almost every single night. And then when there's like a semi big game or a big game, he'll just go like 6 out of 25. And I know he was hurt this past game, but again, the reason I don't trust the Celtics is because I see a lack of intensity in big games from them. Whether it's Jaylen Brown, whether it's Jason Tatum, those are your two highest paid players. Drew Holiday will help them get to the finals, I believe, but I think they'll lose in the finals. That's my thought there. The best team in the NBA right now, they're not going to get to the finals, but right now they're the best team in the NBA. The Los Angeles
Am I
Clippers, led
dreaming, bro? Am I
led by
dreaming right
led by
now?
James Harden. Grant, give me your thoughts on how your Clippers are doing because I see defense, offense, the system himself is working. I mean, never doubted him as a regular season player, but we had a pod early on where we were discussing his advanced stats were horrendous. Then a couple of weeks go by, and he has some of the best advanced stats of his career. All of a sudden, his PSA is top in his career, his EFG is top in his career, is hitting those threes again. Remember, we were saying he needs to start taking those threes. He finally did start taking more. He finally got to the rack more and got fouled, and it's doing wonders for this team, opening up a lot for Kawhi and Paul George.
Yeah, look, I got to say that I was wrong because on the last pod and the pods before that, I went on an absolute rant about the Clippers and how it was a disaster from the top down, and how James Harden, the trade was a disaster, and how the Sixers are thriving, which they still are. Let's not get it wrong. The Sixers are still doing very good. I think this was a win-win trade now. I'm looking at it now. What is it, a couple weeks, 3 weeks ahead? And I'm saying this looks like a home run hit of a trade for both teams. I mean, James Harden, what he's been doing, it's nothing short of spectacular. Like, he looks like the Houston Harden that we were seeing in Houston. And yes, some of his burst still isn't there, but in terms of the passing, he is getting Kawhi Leonard open. He's getting Paul George open in the spots that they need to be. The defense, Brandon, like you said, they're top 10 in defense. Like, they were that even when I went on my rant about how bad they were. They were still a top 10 defensive team. It just seems like they got a little bit better. And James Harden, say what you want about his defense, he is getting his hands in passing lanes. He has multiple steals a game now. It looks like he's putting more effort on that defensive end, which was one of my biggest gripes with him, is that he didn't really put the effort in defensively. He always had the ability because he's a big body. Like, you put a big body in front of a guy in the post, you're going to do pretty well. So for James Harden, I was completely wrong about this trade. This run that they're on, they've won 9 in a row at the time of recording this. They just beat Dallas, which was their biggest kind of test, I guess you could say, in a few games. And they barely won, but they won through adversity, and that's something that they didn't face earlier in this win streak. So they've beaten good teams. They've beaten the Kings. They've beaten the Nuggets. They've beaten I mean, I guess the Warriors aren't that good, but they beat the Warriors. They beat the Dallas Mavericks twice during this streak. So the Clippers, I mean, they are firing on all cylinders. Of course, in typical Clipper fashion, though, Brandon, I am not going to get excited about it too much because Kawhi Leonard left the game. Oh, he didn't leave the game, but he was walking off the court limping with a hip bruise or something, which just made every Clipper fan have PTSD after that Dallas win. But so the injuries are still there. Like Paul George missed a game with an illness. He missed a game with hip soreness, whatever it may be. So they've been a little bit more banged up as of late, but they're staying healthy, and Norm Powell's balling. Russell Westbrook's bought into his role. Ty Lue's making the right rotation changes. Like, what the hell? Well, why is Ty Lue making these
Yeah.
great rotation changes? It just seems like everything's clicking right now, and If they continue to do this, great. But there's so much season left, Brandon. Like there's so much.
Yeah, and look, a lot of people clown on Josh Primo and guys like that, but they got minutes the other day and they look good. I mean, it shows the depth of the team. We always knew Brandon Boston Jr. was really good. They always hold him like a caterpillar, but you got to let him be a butterfly at some point. I think he needs minutes. I've always been adamant about that. I've always been pretty high on Brandon Boston Jr. I think he's got a Brandon Ingram-like game, obviously not to that extent, but I think he can help you on the offensive end win basketball games. And that was my admiration as well for Bones Highland, was very similar in that respect. I know he's been hurt, so he wasn't. I made the joke like Josh Primo got 5 points before Bones Highland over the past few weeks, but that was
True.
because Bones Highland had hip soreness. But I like the making of that team. They play defense. When you play defense, you have a chance to win championships, unless you have James Harden on your roster. So, I mean, you know my thoughts on that. I love
No,
James Harden.
it makes sense.
I really hope. I love him in the regular season. We've all seen as basketball fans what he does in the postseason. Lets his ego get to, he starts trying to take over. And he was great one game, remember, for the
Yeah,
76ers, one or two, where he helped win him a game with no Embiid or Embiid hurt. And then game 7 comes, he knows he needs to do well, or game 6 and 7, chokes both, right? Like that, a typical James Harden. If he can defer to an all-time playoff performer like Kawhi Leonard in those situations, perhaps he can finally get over that hump. I have PTSD. I've seen it for the past like 12 years of my
exactly.
life.
That's how I am.
Like I just don't expect the Clippers to be in the finals as dominant as they look. I just kind of feel like something will go wrong in the playoffs.
Yeah,
James Harden is your roster. But you do this trade for the opportunity when you're in the playoffs that Kawhi can change him, right?
yeah,
That your leaders on the team can step up and demand the ball and change him. Now, Kawhi is pretty docile when it comes to asking for the ball. He's very quiet. Obviously, docile is probably the wrong term considering he's like an alpha on the court, but he's quiet. He's never gonna like
yeah.
give me the freaking ball, and
Right.
like yell at somebody. But in the playoffs, he might have to do something like that because James Harden's going to try and show up, and you're not going to want him to be that guy. And we know the Clippers are going to be in the playoffs. It's just like, okay, win a series. He looks great. I expect the Clippers to get to the second round this year. I fully believe that. I think their ceiling is Western Conference Finals. But again, for them to get to the finals and go to their first NBA championship, it's going to be about James Harden deferring, not putting up
Yes.
the 35 you saw
Yeah.
the other night. As great as he looked, deferring, getting people open. The effort on defense has been great. Okay, I want to see that in the playoffs when the season takes a toll on him.
Exactly.
Like I want to see that. And to me, you can attest to this. I have PTSD. I just haven't seen Harden be a team guy in the playoffs in his whole career. I haven't seen it. And I just want to see that before I can say, okay, if I know that he's going to do that, I'll be like, okay, the Clippers have a chance, but I
Right.
just can't be guaranteed that, right?
Yeah, and you make a good point is that I think that's the biggest thing here is sure the Clippers are doing great now in December, like of course, like they should get better as time goes on. We always said that. Give them some more time. You said that more than anybody. I kind of just dipped out on the theory that they would get any better. So you were correct on that, but in terms of where we're at in the season, I mean, at this point, the Lakers were an afterthought about getting to the Western Conference Finals last year. And they went to the Western Conference Finals last year because they went on a run from February on into the playoffs. So for the Clippers, sure, you're doing great now. And that's good because the Nuggets last year, they were good all year. And that kind of helped them. But for the Clippers, it's how you perform in March and April going in. If you're healthy in March and April going in, then I'll probably have more of a belief. But for now, I mean, of course, there's going to be skepticism, not just from me, not just from you, but from everybody. There should be. They haven't proven to us in 2 years that they can make a run to a conference final. So why would I believe? So yes, there are things that I can look at and say, yeah, they look great here. They look great there. They're playing good defense. Kawhi looks great. Zubats is great. Everything looks good now. But if it's not good in March and April, then none of this December stuff matters. So I'm glad Kawhi and the team is taking that approach, but I just got to put that up there.
100%. And something I wanted to give Kawhi's flowers here, George, is they're playing games and they look like
Right.
themselves finally. That was my big thing. Like in past playoffs, we had talked about this. We've been anti-load management. Our whole like if you watch basketball and you've played basketball and you understand basketball, like the body takes a toll on you in the playoffs, and you got to be
does.
prepared. And
It
to do
does.
that, you got to play a lot of the season games. Back in the day, they used to play all the time, and I know now they have more, research about injuries and stuff. But if you can play through the most minor thing, it'll give you enough strength to sustain even bigger injuries in the playoffs and be able to
Exactly.
be like, okay, this isn't going to affect me as much.
That
So
was a
I'll
great
give
point by you.
hats
I
off.
didn't really yeah.
Yeah, hats off to Kawhi and Paul George for actually doing. Even though we say this when Paul George missed the game due to a minor injury, but yeah, I mean, for the most part, like hats off to him because I think this will really help the Clippers down the road. Now, I wanted to switch gears here to the other team in Los Angeles. The first time ever they've been referred to as the other team in Los Angeles in the
Crazy.
history of sports media. No, but the Lakers. Now, you bring up a great point, Grant, about okay, it's December. I care about how we play in April and May,
Right.
right? Like in March, April, and May. You have been very optimistic about the Lakers. They're going through a rough patch right now, and anybody that knows basketball knows they'll come out of it. I mean, they saw them play in the IST. Like they lazy, they lack intensity right now. That for me, you can attest this. We expected this coming out of their mini in-season tournament. They're on like a hangover, a championship,
Yeah, we
mini
knew it.
championship hangover right now.
Yeah.
Still, what are the changes that you expect and hope Rob Pelinka makes by the trade deadline? Because, by the way, you can't be losing to the Bulls. I mean, in the Spurs in the same week, within a week. It's just for a championship team, a team with championship caliber, aspirations. That's not okay. That's unacceptable. Like, it's not the standard. I know it happens in the NBA, but like, they got to start figuring it out soon because you don't want to get in the same position as last year where LeBron's hurt because you're playing playoff games since February because you got to
Right.
avoid the play in or get in the play in, right? And they were on a great path, and all of a sudden, three in a row, playing the Timberwolves Friday. I mean, by the time you hear this, they might already have lost to them. They're not beating them on Friday. I don't think they're ready yet for a team like that that's really played together the whole year. But what are your thoughts here on how they can get better going into the trade deadline to try and make a run quicker and sooner than last season?
They need shooting, and it's just crazy to say that because this team has the ability to be a good shooting team. They're just not doing it. And I don't know, like you said, I don't know if it's the championship hangover. I don't know if it's the intensity just not being as great as the in-season tournament, which then leads to them, not playing up to par. I don't know what it is. For me, I don't know what shooter you can go get. I mean, even the Pistons have said, "Oh, we're not trading Bogdanovich," so you can't really go out and trade a pick for him, which is kind of crazy that the Pistons are going to say that. They're asking for the house for Bogdanovich, who would honestly be a great fit for them. Maybe you can go after a guy like Jordan Clarkson. Like Jordan Clarkson has been known to be on the trade market now. So maybe you can go get him back. Then you'd have D'Angelo Russell and Jordan Clarkson on the same team again, unless you trade D'Angelo Russell for
Why
him.
not?
But I mean, I guess that would be okay. But they need shooting and like a solid shoot. They don't need a guy that maybe he can have his career high this year. But he was a shooter in the past. But they need a guy that this year has been a good shooter. And I don't know where you go and find that. It's either that, Brandon, or you go and get a guy like Caruso. You get a guy that can play
Yeah.
excellent defense and shoot the three. So for me, I just don't understand what direction they want to go in. I don't understand, what kind of changes they can make to better. The only thing that would probably make their team better is a huge trade right now. And I don't see them doing that. I don't see them making a huge trade. Do they need a huge trade? No, but I think the only trade that they will make is one like to get Caruso and Levine or to get Caruso and DeRozan. I know you don't like DeRozan on the Lakers, and I don't really either. I think it would be like Westbrook 2.0. And DeRozan's a good player, but it just is not a good fit. So I just don't know what route
I
they can
have
go.
thoughts on that.
Yeah.
What
So,
defines a good
go ahead. Go
what
ahead.
defines a great
I
what
want you to
defines a
talk
great
about it.
basketball player? Because does DeMar DeRozan impact winning at a high level right now in his
Uh,
career?
no.
Really? Does Zach Levine?
No, that's why the
Then why
Bulls
would
are
they want
winning.
either of those
That's why the
guys?
Bulls are winning
Exactly,
right
because
now.
they don't have Zach Levine who ball hogs and doesn't play defense. A
Right.
guy who impacts winning the most on that Bulls roster that all
Caruso.
NBA contenders want.
Caruso.
Exactly. So for me, I'm like, people are like, oh, D'Angelo Russell this for in all our first round picks for Zach Levine and no, why not just D'Angelo
No.
Russell for Alex Caruso and I
Yeah, but I
mean
don't think
and
the
someone
Bulls
else?
take that. That's the
Well, of
thing. I
course
think
not.
the Bulls
Of
are
course
very
not,
adamant.
because
Yeah, yeah.
well, they think they're going to contend. They live in some fantasy. I mean, the Bulls are not contending as long as Lonzo Ball is not on the court. Like, let's be real. Like, Lonzo Ball's on the court, they have a chance. They were the
Right.
first seed. But that was also when DeMar DeRozan was like 2 years younger and was putting up 28
He was
points
an
per game,
all-star, I think.
right? Like, yeah, he's getting older. I mean, that
Yeah.
happens. Not everyone is LeBron James. Like, he's not the same player he was last year. He's not the same player he was 2 years ago. That's a fact. So, I mean, they got to, but again, why would you take D'Angelo Russell and picks? Or D'Angelo Russell in a pick when you can get probably two. I mean, what did Jay Crowder get? Like 6 second-round picks or
No, he
something
got
for
5
from like
second-round
the
picks. Same with
Bucks.
Gary Payton II. He got 5 second-round picks, and like the Warriors could have had Sadiq Bey, and they just said no, we want Gary Payton II. It's like, okay, I mean, he won a championship with you, but all
I
right.
feel like
But for the
Sadiq
Lake,
Bey is kind of getting like disrespected in Atlanta. Like I feel like he's a good player.
no,
That's kind of
he
just
is.
like they're just like. I feel like it's tough to play at Atlanta because it's just Trey in the pick and roll, and like you
Trey's
guys are
been
like
Trey.
spot up
Can I give a
shooting.
shout out to Trey though? Trey's kind of been
Yeah, he's been
balling this
balling.
year. Like he's been
But I'm
pretty
just like
good.
saying, I wonder what DeAndre Hunter's career could have been like if he went to Toronto
Oh
and got
yeah,
more touches,
yeah,
like or like Sadiq Bey went to Toronto, because
yeah.
like Toronto has a problem with offense. Like they develop guys, and if
Mhm.
you're an offensive guy like Van Fleet, and you can like provide your own offense, you can flourish there. We see what
Yeah,
Van Fleet's doing in Houston, which is another place you can flourish. I mean, Ime is really good at letting guys do what they want, playing some defense as well, and they'll be good within a few years. But I just was thinking about like I feel like it's so weird being a non-big or Trey Young on the Hawks. Like DeJounte Murray needs the ball in his hand. That was always a weird fit.
yeah.
Then you got DeAndre
Yeah, I
Hunter,
don't
who
know.
I
I
feel like
I
is
never liked the Hawks fit. Like, sure, they're playing okay, but that fit with him and Murray and just they just always seem disjointed. Like they'll go on a good streak, and they got Quinn Snyder, and I thought that would be a little bit better for them. They went on a like they'll go on a good streak and then they'll go on a bad streak, and it's just so hot and cold with the Hawks that I just don't trust them
yeah.
in a 7 game series against the Sixers or the Celtics or the
Well,
Bucks or anybody.
Trey Young's an excellent offensive player, but
Yeah,
when you build your team around him, you're also going to be one of the worst defensive teams in the league. And Trey Young has been playing better defense this year. I'll give
yeah,
him credit.
mhm,
But the style of basketball he plays, that high pace, like get the ball down the field, get the ball down the court, like and Quinn Snyder's always been a big proponent of that type of offense too. Remember, he had the number one offense in Utah with Donovan
mhm,
Mitchell and with Jordan Clarkson when he was there a few years ago. Like they were number one before he
yeah.
got fired the year they lost
Oh yeah.
to Paul George and Terrence Mann and the Clippers. But yeah, they were the number one offense in the NBA that year. So I just think it's like so hard to win a championship though with a guy like Trey Young as your best
Yeah.
player, as great as he is. And there's so many guys, so many Hall of Famers, which Trey Young will be. I don't know, like he's one of the best offensive players of our generation. Like
Yeah,
I
he's
don't
gonna
care what
remember
anybody
him.
says. Like what he can do is just ridiculous. I mean, the guy was out. He was 18 years old at Oklahoma, averaging 30 points per game in the best conference in college basketball, pretty much one of them.
Yeah.
His freshman year, 18. The kid is special, but there's very few basketball players that you can build a championship team around. And that's why we've been adamant about this. And I wanted to ask you about this because we brought this
Mhm.
up last year too. If you're a GM and you don't have one of the cornerstone players, like you can build your team. Like if you're okay, like let's say a difference. Brooklyn Nets. Okay,
Mhm.
let's look at them. Okay, Mikal Bridges. Can you win a championship with him as your best player? Absolutely not. It doesn't matter how much he
Yeah.
improves. If he's your two or three, if he's your
Oh,
three,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But if he's your two or one, maybe two, perhaps. But look at Siakam. Like Siakam needed to be the three, the two or the three, three
Mhm.
probably behind Lowry and Kawhi. The year
Mhm.
they won. Draymond Green, three. Like if he's your two or one, like no. Klay Thompson, if he's your one, no. Like Scottie Pippen, if he's your one, no. Like you just go.
Yeah.
Charles Barkley was one of the best players ever, and he could never win a championship as
That's
the
a great
best
point.
player, right? Like Shaq needed Kobe, Kobe needed Shaq. Like there's very few players that you can build around. Like there's very few LeBrons. Let's see, Luka is another guy. I think you can win a championship as your best player. I don't even
Giannis?
think Giannis, yeah, of course, because he's unstoppable. I mean, you can. I know people are saying he doesn't have a bag. Does he need one? You just go to the rack. Like, and I look to be honest, like we talk crap about Embiid, but if he can get foul calls like that, probably him too. Like,
Yeah,
let's be
yeah.
real, he can probably win a championship too if he can go to the line 30 times a game. Like, I
Unbelievable,
mean,
dude.
he is, but he's excellent at drawing fouls. I will give him credit there.
Oh,
He is
no, I don't like
excellent at it.
watching him play
It's the
basketball. He flies
neither
across
do
the
I.
floor. No, listen, he flies across the
Neither do
floor
I.
like he's a guard. And this guy's 7'2", 500 billion pounds, and he doesn't
Yeah.
play like it. He plays like a guard, and sometimes the fouls that he gets are like stuff that James Harden would get back in the day. I'm just like, why? Why are you giving him that foul? He foul baits a lot, which doesn't make it fun to watch. Look, he is a very talented player, but for Embiid's putting up insane numbers, but it's due to the free throws and due to it's not all due to the free throws. I'll give him credit. He is very talented in the post. He can shoot it from the outside. He's an excellent defender. He may win MVP again if he keeps these numbers up, but he's so horrible to watch. I don't want to watch Embiid ever.
Yeah.
I hate watching him play basketball.
Yeah, I think everybody is with you there. Unless you're a 76ers fan, he's
Sorry, I
probably
just
one
went
of
on
the
like a
worst
little
players,
rant about
superstars to
Embiid.
watch. Oh, he is a foul baiter. It's exactly who he is. I mean, Jokic should have won the MVP over him last year. I just don't respect it to the level that like a guy like Luca is doing it on a nightly basis. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah,
Luca right now should be the MVP front runner. I think what he does for the
sure.
Mavericks, regardless of their record, is like, okay, it's Luca, Jokic, or like Shea maybe is another guy. Like,
Ooh,
but for me, I'm
Shea.
like Embiid's not even in I can't give a back-to-back MVP to a guy that plays like that. Like, I just
Yeah,
can't. I'm with you there, and he's excellent. And he's a top 6, 7 guy. But people are saying, oh, he's the best player in the league. Like watch basketball. Like, he's great, but he's not Luka Doncic. He's not LeBron James. He's not Stephen Curry. That like Kevin Durant, like special shot creators.
right.
He's just not that. Like, he's just not. Like, yeah, he can do things at the center position that very few centers have ever done, but he's not Jokic. He's not, like, he's not one of these guys. So he goes into that, what I was saying, back to my point. How many guys can you build around and win a championship around a guy? I don't think you can win a championship with Embiid as your best player. I think it's very
I
tough.
completely
I think
agree.
it's very tough. And I think the same thing can be said for Jason Tatum. I hate to say it,
Oh
unless you
man,
get a
how about
number
that
two,
loss against the
and
Warriors?
well,
Oh my
unless
god.
look, if Jason Tatum were to swap places with LeBron, I think he could win a championship with the
Oh,
Lakers. If
yeah.
AD
Oh,
is
yeah.
if AD is his second best player. The problem is Jaylen Brown is his second best player. Another guy like James Harden who does not show up in big games. And by the way, is the most overpaid player in basketball. Should have never signed that contract. We were adamant about him being
Yeah.
shipped before you had to pay. I don't care that
Oh my
that's going to
goodness.
be a normal contract in a few years because of inflation and what the NBA cap
Mm.
is going to be and all that. Like, okay, it'll turn out to be a top 15 paid player, 10 top 10 paid. It's 60 million a year for that guy. I'm sorry, kick rocks, bro. Like,
He
you're
can't
not
even use
helping me
his
to
left
win a
hand and down
championship.
this. I mean, he hasn't been that good this year in terms of what he's being paid for. And Celtics fans will agree with me. You can say, "Oh, well, you guys are just saying that because you hate the Celtics." No, I don't hate this. Brandon hates the Celtics because he's a Lakers fan. But for me, it's just what it is. Like, we're watching basketball, and he just doesn't impact the game the way a $60 million guy should. That's what we're
Well,
seeing.
but I'll say this: I don't obviously I grew up a Laker fan. I don't like the Celtics. I like watching them play basketball, though. I
Right?
think
Yeah.
fundamentally they're a good team to
Yeah, they
watch. If
are.
they had Ime Udoka, they'd already have a ring, in my opinion, last
I
year
agree.
probably. Um, but they really, yeah. But anyways, I digress. Like, there's very few players. Like, I don't even think Kevin Durant can be a number one on a championship team
And
anymore.
I've been trying to
Like,
tell people this, and
right?
now
Like,
we're seeing it. Like, that Suns team. Can we talk about the Suns? Like, because
yes. Let's
the
go into
Suns are
that
what
because
are they?
that
They're
leads me into my next
hovering.
point.
Yeah, they're hovering around 500, and me and you both had our doubts about their bench. We did agree that they got a little bit better with what they had. They barely had any money, and they kind of did a good job piecing together some bench depth. But oh my God, Bradley Beal has not seen the floor at all. These guys are injury prone. Booker's already missed time. Kevin Durant's already missed time. Me and you both said this before the season. These three guys have history of being injured, and Kevin Durant's not young. Devin Booker just got hurt for a lengthy period last year, and Bradley Beal, even when he was healthy, he's a mid-range player. He's not even a guy that can shoot the three, and that's what they need right now. All they're doing is shooting mid-ranges, ISO, Booker Durant, Booker Durant, Booker Durant. Oh, pass out to Gordon. It's like the James Harden Rockets offense, where it's like dribble, dribble, dribble,
Yeah.
dribble, ISO, and then here, dish out with 2 seconds on the shot clock. That's not going to work. They have no physicality. Nurkic has not been good, like you and I both predicted. And Eric Gordon has been bad, like I predicted. All these things that we said about the Suns are coming. Look, I'm going to say this. It's December, so there's a lot of things that can go right for them. But right now, all the things that we said that could go wrong for them are going wrong.
Do they beat Minnesota in a playoff series tomorrow?
No, 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 no,
Do
no,
they beat OKC in a playoff series tomorrow?
no. Too quick, too physical.
And they sure as heck do not beat Denver, the
They don't
Lakers. I
beat the
don't care how
Lakers
bad the
either.
Lakers are
No,
playing. They don't beat the Lakers, and they don't beat who's the team I'm
the
forgetting that's
Clippers.
also pretty good in the West.
I'll take
Yeah,
the
they don't beat
Clippers.
the Clippers.
I'll take the
Yeah,
Mavericks
me too.
too. Pelicans.
Oh,
All physical teams. All physical.
by the way,
Physicality. Playing.
do not. I'm gonna tell you guys right now. Do not sleep on the Mavericks to win the championship this year.
Ooh.
Do not. You know why? A guy you can win a championship with as your top guy, Luka Doncic. Okay, say what you want. I know Rick Carlisle hates him and said, whatever, like, oh, he's a prima donna, whatever. I mean, he knows he's good. He needs the ball in his hand. Like LeBron, he probably would hate LeBron too. Like
Rick
LeBron,
Carlisle has no room to talk with his Pacers right now.
let's just talk about a team IST loss hangover of
Yeah.
the championship, but
Oh.
that's a whole different conversation. But Luka Doncic, and you talked about this. You were the first person to say, I like the Grant Williams signing. I like Derek Lively. Like we both loved
We
Derek
both
Lively in the
did.
draft.
Mhm.
Even Prosper. Tim Hardaway's been flourishing. They
Yeah.
haven't. Kyrie has looked like a fragment of himself, and they look like a serious contender.
Dante
Now, I
Exum?
would say, yeah, Dante Exum out
Oh
of
my
nowhere.
god.
I would say if you just traded Kyrie Irving and got some more wing depth, which they
Lakers?
had before they traded Kyrie Irving, yeah, I mean, if you got like Cam Reddish, like
Ooh,
even
you do
D'Angelo
that?
Russell, if I'm the Mavericks, yeah, if I get like
Okay.
a defender like Cam Reddish, a guy that can score a little bit like
Yeah.
that, maybe Rui Hachimura, I try and pry away, and D'Angelo
Ooh.
Russell, like I would do it if I'm the Mavericks because then you get two extra scorers and a defender. Like
Yeah.
Kyrie is still Kyrie Irving. He's still I hate to say it, a team cancer when it gets down the stretch. I mean, what has he ever provided to a championship team other than Cleveland before he was his fully formed self? And he had
But he was
LeBron,
with LeBron
right?
there, right? Yeah.
The only guy who could ever win a championship with. He's got nowhere close with any other team.
Yeah.
That's my big reservation. If Kyrie Irving was literally not on that roster, I think the Mavericks would have a far superior chance if they could replace him with a few depth pieces, like wing pieces, like defense. Because now the team plays better defense than they did
Mhm.
last year because they
They do.
added those guys by the rim, and Grant Williams for perimeter defense, guys like that. Like if they just got Dorian Finney-Smith back and Dinwiddie, like they'd be good. Like I think they'd be a championship contender. Like I don't care. Like I think they would 100%. I think Kyrie is the big issue, and the reason why they're so good this year is because we haven't seen him be Kyrie. He's been like
Right,
kind of
exactly.
20 points off the bench. Like he looks like Lamar Odom in 2006, like or like off the bench, like really good scorer, like that's kind of all he is, right? He's not a superstar this year, which is good. Like they need Luka, they need the ball in Luka's hands, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't know. That's probably my. I still think, by the way, like you're gonna hate this take. I know they play defense. I do not think the Wolves have really a good chance to win the championship.
Yeah,
I
tell
don't.
me
I
about
still
that
think they're.
because you have a strong opinion about it.
I think they're a few years away. I think their cornerstone player, Anthony Edwards, is still 2 years away from that when we typically see superstars win their first championship, like 25,
Yeah,
26, like 2, 3 years away. Um, and I know Gobert's there and he's been playing great, but we've seen what Gobert turns into in the playoffs.
exactly.
Never good in the playoffs. Never been good in the playoffs, by the way. We've seen what Karl Anthony Towns turns into for the most time. Actually, he's actually pretty good in the playoffs. I'll give him credit. But like in
Mm,
elimination games, he was outplayed by John Morant. He was outplayed. Like look at outplayed by Anthony Davis, outplayed by LeBron James. I mean, every type of elimination game or playing game or playoff game, he's been outplayed, right? So that's
right.
another guy. McDaniels is always hurt. I know they didn't have him for their run last year, and that was huge because he broke his hand, and he's
Ooh,
one of the best defenders in the
brutal.
NBA. And they're one of those teams like Utah a few years ago when they lost to the Clippers, where we were both talking about like Utah's not winning a championship. Like they're just not. On
Yeah,
paper, they look great. On paper, they're great offensively. They're balanced defensively. Now this team is elite defensively and balanced offensively. And I would give them close to a 0% chance to win the championship. Like I would say close to that.
wow.
Historically, if you look at all of the numbers and you watch basketball, they look to me as good as the numbers show. Like if I'm watching them and we put them into a series in against a Luka Doncic, even a Stephen Curry, like experienced guys. I know the Warriors look terrible. If you put the Warriors into a series in May or against them, that's a series because of the
Wow.
superstars. It's a superstar driven league. If you put the Wolves against the Lakers in a series in May, they are losing that series. I'm telling you that right now. Like Oklahoma City is another team that I think excellent. Shea could be one of the best players that's ever played this game. He really could. He has the talent to become one of those guys. Still a few years away from
Right.
really winning a championship. People don't want to, they want, and look, the NBA, it's great. Like we saw this with Memphis, where it was like, we love these upstart teams that are all of a sudden really good. But we
Mhm.
have to come to the realization how many guys have actually won a championship? Like we had this conversation last year. Jokic finally entered that conversation. There's been 6 guys that have won a championship over the past like 15 years, like that have like actually won. And it's LeBron, right? Like Durant, Curry, over the past decade, right? Jokic,
Kawhi, yeah.
Giannis, and Kawhi. There's 6
Yeah.
guys, right? Like, am I forgetting somebody? Like, I think there's like 6 or 7 guys. Like Jokic finally entered that
Jokic, yeah.
conversation. I think when we're discussing that, like that has to be like I know people want to see the upstarts like Memphis a few years ago. I was high on. I was like, let's go, but of course they were going to lose to the more experienced Warriors, right?
Oh,
Who
yeah.
ended up winning the title. Like I just feel like that's it takes a few more years till we get into that realm where it's going to be Jokic, Giannis still. When LeBron retires,
Mhm.
Jokic and Giannis will still be there. Luka will probably have a
Luka
ring by that point within the 4 years, probably, hopefully, or he'll start that ascension. And
with the
then that's
Lakers.
when you like 3 or 4 years. No, he won't be with the Lakers. Luka, no. He's a Maverick for life. Um,
Oh, okay.
but but Jokic on the
Tatum with the
Mavericks.
Lakers. I'm just trying to
Honestly,
feed
at this
into your
point, let's hope not. At this point, it chokes in every big game. The Lakers don't
Oh,
need
yeah.
that. Um, but I digress. The point here is it'll take a few years for Anthony Edwards led teams or Shea Gilgeous-Alexander led teams or Victor Wembanyama led teams to win a championship. It just
Mhm.
will. The guys at the top, and people refuse to believe it because they're always trying to push the younger guys. It's still Jokic, Giannis, LeBron, Curry, Durant. Like it really is
Yeah, it
Kawhi.
is.
Like it's still like 6 guys that run the league, and the chances are 95% of the time one of those guys is going to win the championship this year. Like it's probably going to happen. I think people refuse to believe that. I just like it's on paper the Wolves look great. On paper the Jazz looked great a few years ago. On paper last year, a lot of people were high in the Kings. Like there's
Yeah.
0% chance the Kings win a championship this year. Like I'm just being honest with you. Like they're still a few years away. Like they need another big free agent to come in or a big like trade like for them to even be close. And that's still another step. That's not even to the championship. Like there's very few teams that if you're like in Vegas that you're like, okay, I'll boil it down to you. It's one of these 6 guys. Like bet on one of these. Bet on the Lakers, the Nuggets, the Clippers. Well, the Clippers, the franchise, but they still
Maybe.
have Kawhi Leonard, so that changes. Hopefully, that could
Mhm.
change something. What I say? Nuggets, Clippers, Lakers, Warriors.
The Heat? Can we throw
Um,
Jimmy Butler in there? Because he's made 2 finals.
no, no, they could, but he hasn't won. He hasn't won.
Okay.
He hasn't won. I don't know if he can be the one on a championship team. He's
Okay.
close. He's one of those guys that's extremely close, to
Yeah.
being a one on a championship team. Like a Paul George, like super close to being the one. John Morant, super close to being the one on a championship team.
Ja.
Dame before this season. I love John. We'll get into that before
Yeah.
we end the podcast. But that's my point. Like one of those 6 teams, like the guys that have won, Suns, like
And that's
in the
crazy,
East,
like,
Bucks,
the
in the
like,
Bucks, like that.
you're talking about these teams that are always in it, but there's always that one team that, like, makes a miraculous run, but those teams never win the finals. Like, the Heat made this miraculous run to the finals last year, but they still got beat by the 1 seed in 5 games. So, sure, you
And
can
I
make your
feel,
run, but, like, you're not gonna probably win because the
yeah.
talent's out gonna outweigh it.
I feel like the same thing's going to happen to the Celtics. Now, Tatum could enter that conversation, but that's because that team is so good, not because
Yeah.
Tatum is so good. It's because that team is so much better than every other basketball team roster wise in the NBA. Now, if Missoula could like coach at an elite level, I would say, sure, I'll put de facto Celtics as the 7th team that
Sure.
If I was going to Vegas, I would bet on for the championship because they could absolutely win. But I just don't think they will. I think they'll get beat by Jokic. I
Yeah.
think probably Denver or the Lakers. I still think it's Denver or the Lakers. I really do. At the end of the day, I know a lot of people want to say it's like, oh, maybe the Clippers. Like I said, if James Harden surrenders his ego, they have a chance.
Yeah.
Like I think we could realistically see Denver. Denver. No one wants to see this, but I guarantee you, we can like. There's a high percentage of it being Suns, Nuggets, and Clippers, Lakers as the 4 teams in the West.
I
There's a
agree.
high percentage of it just because of the players they have.
Right.
Okay, like, and
Right.
in the East, it's probably Bucks, Celtics, Heat, Sixers. Like that. I'm sorry, I love the upstart teams. I love OKC. I love Sacramento. I love in the West, Minnesota. In the East, I like Indiana. I like all these. But like, let's be real here. They're still years away from taking the mantle from these other guys. Like that's kind of historically how the NBA's been,
And
right?
they'll probably like these teams that we say are the upstart teams, they'll probably take another step, whether that be OKC actually getting into the playoffs and winning a round, and with Minnesota winning a round. Maybe we might see a Thunder Wolves second round. But I just, you're right. There's a lot of skepticism just because I haven't seen, like I was talking about the Clippers, I haven't seen it in a while. I haven't seen the Thunder and the Wolves get past the first round, or even, the Thunder haven't even gotten in a
In
long
your
time.
lifetime.
Right.
Well, no,
So
the Thunder have, but like
yeah,
Minnesota, has Minnesota ever gotten to the Western Conference Finals in your lifetime?
in my
They've never
lifetime,
been there,
I
have
mean,
they?
maybe in 04, 05, but I wasn't even
They were
conscious back
there in
then. Like, I
04.
didn't. Well, with Kevin Garnett, they had a pretty good team. I don't know if they were in the
They
the
went to the
conference
Western Conference
finals. I don't
Finals.
think
No,
they were
they
in the
didn't.
Western Conference Finals, but maybe
I would have
no, because
remembered
it was
that.
it was Kings Timberwolves, and I think the Kings beat them to go to the Western
Well,
Conference
that was when
Finals in
Donahue was
20.
still rigging games, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, but the thing is, like, yeah, it is, dude. Well, the refereeing, we can get into that. I don't want to get into that because there's been a lot of bad refereeing in the NBA this year, like a lot, and it's more than
Oh no,
years
they
past.
were. You're right. You're right. You're
See,
right.
I
They
knew it.
did. You were right. Oh, for the Lakers beat the Timberwolves. That was when they had Gary Payton, Gary Payton and
Carl
Josh
Malone.
Giddey's Josh Giddey's guy right there, Carl Malone, in the back in the day. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, but
still
that's see,
allowed
like,
somehow to be at
yeah, I don't know
NBA
how. Yeah, Josh
places.
Giddey's
I
and
don't know how.
Miles Bridges just got denied entry to
Miles
Canada, and he's still
Bridges.
playing, dude. Like, I
Oh,
just don't.
rightfully so. He rightfully so got denied entry into Canada. I mean, I talk about how down horrendous you have to be to like see that video and be like, "We're so bad. I want to sign Miles Bridges right now."
So,
Like
wait.
that's
Speaking
kind
of
of
criminal
crazy.
activity,
Like
you have a jaw
what,
and
D'Angelo
game.
Russell?
No, no, no. What did he do? He didn't do anything.
Polo Lounge? He went to the
No.
Polo Lounge on
Okay, that
game
is a
day.
crime. That's a crime
Tell-
on the game day with soupy
what did he
pancakes.
do? What did he
Uh,
do?
soupy
No, not
pancakes
this.
and
The pancakes are not the problem. What is the
the face
problem?
latte.
What was
The
the
face
problem?
latte.
Of course. Tell him about it. Tell him again about
No, see,
D'Angelo
I'm gonna tell
Russell
him again.
before.
Before the Timberwolves playing game, this guy went and got soupy, carby, sugary pancakes and a face latte, a latte with his picture burned into it, like before a game. Of course, he had slow legs. Of course, he's gonna turn the ball over. Anyways, I digress. The criminal activity that I was getting to is that Ja Morant made his return. You have a take about Ja Morant that I want everyone to hear that you told me, and we actually put it out, but I want you to tell everybody.
I'll say it again. I said it a few weeks ago. John Morant, I would rather have right now if I'm winning a championship than Damian Lillard, and I don't think it's particularly close. I think he just plays more winning basketball, and we saw that in his return. Damian Lillard, he's with Giannis now. Whatever people think they have a chance, I don't think they get to the finals. I just don't. I mean, maybe it's because of Giannis. It's not because of Damian Lillard. Maybe he can be a 2 on a championship team. I don't think he can be a 1 on a championship team. We saw that in Portland. Sure, they didn't have the most, talent around him, but he had
He had
LA
a good
for a
team.
long time. He had LA. People forget about how good
Yeah,
LA
Marcus
was, LaMarcus
Aldridge.
Aldridge.
Yeah,
Like people forget like what a baller he was. Okay, you couldn't really do crap with him there, right? And then
yeah.
you CJ, you have Norm. Even before that, you have guys there that can play basketball at a high level. Still can't do it, and that was when he was in his prime. I think he's a little bit past his prime now. And I think like you see the difference with Memphis. Like Memphis was losing every dang game. Like the old thing was used to be like, oh, they can win without Ja. Well, like, no, they actually can't win without John Morant. Like, they need him to win big games. And he's one of those rare guys that when you absolutely need a guy to come back and lead a team to victory, he can do it. It's one of the few, maybe 10 players in the NBA that can actually do that. And I don't think Dame is one of those guys anymore, but Ja is. And that's why if I want a guy to help me win a game, one game to save my life, I would have Ja Morant late in the game to help me win. Ja's moxie too. I just feel like Dame doesn't have that moxie anymore. I know he says Dame, whatever. Like, when has he ever had won a big game in recent memory? Like, that's been like 5 years since he won that playoff game, dude. Dude, like, give it up, give it up. It's like, the Gucci bag, like, meme where you're like, it's like hanging on the edge. It's like, that's where
Serve
we're
my
at with
bread.
Damian Lillard's career. That's where we're at with his career. Excellent player, Hall of Famer, has had one of the best trailblazers in
Yeah,
history. I just don't think, like, when the going gets tough, we saw it in the Indiana semifinal game. He just couldn't get it going. They lost because of him. They lost because of him. Correct, anybody says they lost because of him in that game,
yeah. His
not
defense was
Giannis, because of him.
really, yeah,
And his defense is the reason they will not get to the finals.
exactly.
I'll tell you that right
That's a
now. I think
reason
it's
why the
Boston,
Blazers.
Boston or Miami.
That's a reason why the Blazers never got anywhere because CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard were absolutely atrocious defending Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. So that was a reason why they could never get past them in a Western Conference final or in a second round. Now they did get to a conference final with Dame Lillard, but in that Western Conference final, they just abused them. And I feel like that, and that was with Dame younger. Now you have a Dame that's slower. Obviously, he has a little bit more of an injury concern. He can
And
still
he can
score
still
the
can't play
lights out.
defense.
Yeah, he still can't play defense. So I would take Ja, who just came back, scored 34, and got a game-winning buzzer beater after being down by 22 against a good Pelicans team. His first game, Ja did this. This isn't like, oh, he had some time to warm up. He came right off of a suspension and balled out. And led his team by himself. Like, you don't have Steven Adams. You don't have Clark. You don't even have Marcus Smart. And he took that team and beat it. I know it's the regular season, but he took them from a 22-point deficit and won the game in the second half. That's what Ja did, and that's what kind of player he can be. I'm not saying the Grizzlies are going to turn into this contender, but man, the impact that he had already was kind of crazy.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I think this is kind of crazy what we see. Now, I want to say this. I do think that the Clippers still need another four.
I
I've been
agree.
adamant about that.
John Collins.
There's been a guy getting passed around. Yep, Mister Passed around on every single team has been passing him around. I mean, he's been on the trade block his whole career.
I
Imagine how
know.
bad that feels. Poor guy.
Ooh.
It's not like he's a bad player. Like,
I
he's
know.
extremely athletic. He was a borderline all-star, by the way, at one point, like when he was doing the pick and roll with Trae Young, and then they brought Capella in and kind of ruined his
Yeah.
development. Capella's been excellent, by the way. I can't say good enough things about Capella's always been like a solid NBA player, but one of those
I
guys that
know.
gets like
And Valanciunas.
lost in the modern
Him and
NBA.
Valanciunas.
Well, I feel like Valanciunas. Okay, we got it. Okay, I'm gonna stop my take right here. I'm gonna talk about how good Jonas Valanciunas is. If he
Oh,
played 32 minutes per game, the Pelicans would be a far better team. But instead, they want to give the rock to Zion and have him go to the lane on those inefficient, shots and hope he gets fouled, or then CJ McCollum throwing up bricks like it's like they're
dude.
building into a dome. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, the guy is. I mean, it's already built. So if he's throwing bricks into a dome, that means
Yeah.
you know, he's yeah. But it's basically built. Isn't it finished? It looks finished to me.
Nah, not the
It's not
inside. They
finished.
still haven't. No, not the inside. The
The
outside looks
outside's
almost done.
finished.
Yeah.
You got to build the base first. At least the base is
Yeah.
finished. But I guarantee you, CJ McCollum was there. It would have been finished quicker because he would have thrown those bricks like nobody's business, dude. I mean, this guy. I love CJ McCollum. Very smart guy. Going to be an excellent sports analyst after his career. Okay,
Oh yeah.
he's honestly one of the smartest NBA players there is. He owns a wine business. Very into wine in Oregon. He produces really good wines. Very into that. Always been very articulate. Just a super smart, really knows what he's doing, got his head on his shoulder. Like, he knows. He's a good
Yeah.
guy. But another guy that I just don't
Inconsistent.
think provides winning basketball when it matters. I don't he's a solid player,
Inconsistent.
but I just like if you wanted to put him on the Lakers, like, and you were going to give him to us for free, I would say no, thank you. Like straight up. Like
Even with
I
the
mean,
shooting issues, you wouldn't take CJ McCollum?
no, maybe right now, maybe right now. But my
Oh,
point
yeah,
is, like,
all right.
obviously we'd have to give up. Obviously, we'd have to give up. Like the Lakers would have to give up like Max Christie and first
Oh,
rounders for him
heck
to
no.
even be a
Hell
conversation.
no.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't. Okay. Valanciunas, by the way, shot 46% from three a few years ago. Has
Dude,
one of the
he's
highest EFGs in the league. He's a bruiser. You can't get by him. I
yeah.
mean, the guy is like just huge. He's like a bodybuilder at 7 foot
He
one.
looks like Travis
I
Kelce.
mean, he does. He wreaks havoc on defenses, and he never misses in the post. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, defense, dude, that guy will scare opposing players."
Like, I
Like
think the last week,
I think he's one of like the most underrated players in the league. I'll stand
dude,
by it.
over
Like
the
he could
last
be an
week,
all-star if he was on a
he had 18 and a half, 14 and 14.8 rebounds and 3.5 assists with a 4-0 record for the Pelicans. Like, those are insane stats for a guy that like nobody talks about. Everyone talks about like Zubats even more than Valanciunas. Valanciunas 19 and 15 averaging, like he had even better games than that. I think he had a game of like 20 something points and 15 rebounds. That's like AD numbers.
I mean, back
29 and 13.
when Zion was hurt, I mean, in 25 minutes per game, he was averaging like 20 and 15. Like these guys ridiculous. He can shoot threes, stretch the floor. I would love him on the Lakers. Let's be real,
Yeah,
but they're never
totally.
going to get him. But I think one of the more underappreciated players in the league. I really like. By the way, I love that you brought him up because he's great. But I don't think the Clippers can get him. Otherwise, if they do, he'd be the next great Jokic torturer, like Ivica Zubac. It's some Eastern European thing. They cast a spell. Maybe Mama
Dude,
Vishveli or
Mamalush
whatever his name is. You can
Ravelli,
get him.
dude, I just cast a
Cast
spell
a
on the whole
spell on
people,
Jokic.
everyone that's watching the pod. That is some
Yeah,
witchcraft right there with that last name, but he's actually kind of nice. I've always liked him, the
well, then why
Mamalush
don't you pick
Ravelli.
him up? He's probably cheap. He's probably
I
cheap, and
well,
you need a four.
I think the Spurs have him under contract. I mean, I guess he's on a two-way, so you could sign him, but the Clippers don't even play their two ways now. What makes you think
Dude,
they're going to play
the
him?
Spurs the Spurs don't even want to win basketball games. Like they're
Which
not
is
going.
which is kind
They
of ridiculous. Can we end on this? Is because the Spurs,
yes.
they should have a point guard. They should have offered Austin Reeves $100 million. They didn't do that. They didn't even draft a point guard. They have Trey Jones and Jeremy Sohan out there playing point guard, and they're missing Wembanyama on all these pick and roll alley oops every single time. Like I was telling everyone this. I was watching a game with my family, and I was like, "Listen, why doesn't Victor Wembanyama touch the ball on every single possession that he's on the floor? Sometimes they just completely ignore him like he's not even there. I can't even believe this. He's one
You
of
see when he
the
went
most
for that air
impactful
dunk.
players. Yes, because he can't even get the ball from a point guard. Like Trey Jones and
Dude,
Jeremy
when I
Sohan do not find him. I don't get
dude,
it.
I don't know.
They're wasting his
Look, I
talent.
don't.
He should be dominating. You should just feed him. There he is down the court. Throw it up and let his long arms get it. Why not?
He seems like a very nice guy, but if I was him, I would just tell my defense, give me the rock or I'm not talking to you. Like the rest, give me the rock right now. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, none of those bums are lasting 10 years in the NBA besides him. Like pretty
Oh,
much, like
man.
12 years. Like Jeremy Sohan might be out of the league in 5 years. Like, let's be real. Like
He's
I
just
was never
detrimental
high
to
on
that
him.
team.
I was never high on him in the draft. And oh my God, like I love KOC. Like don't get me wrong, but he was one of those guys that was all in on Sohan, defense, deep, like deep, blah blah blah. Bro, I watched one game with him at Baylor, and I'm like, that is not an NBA player. He plays defense. That guy has no jumper. You have no
What is
jumper. You know
it?
how good. You know how good you have to be defensively and with the passing and everything to last in the NBA without a jumper.
What is
Like
it with
Draymond is that even a
KOC?
better
What
jumper.
is it with KOC and not and like liking guys that can't shoot? Like he likes Killian Hayes and he liked Jeremy Sohan, both guys that
He
can play
liked
okay
Killian
defense.
Hayes.
Yes, yeah, that was like
I
his
said
guy. He's like,
Killian.
oh, Killian Hayes is gonna be one of the best players ever. Like what?
I liked. He loved Dyson Daniels too, but Dyson Daniels is pretty good
Nice
though.
Daniels
I'm
is
not
good.
gonna lie. Dyson, he'll be good. He'll have a good NBA career. I think he'll be pretty
Yeah,
good. I said Killian Hayes was Dante Exum 2.0 before that draft, and I was absolutely right. But it
you're
turns out
so
Dante
right.
Exum's a baller now.
No,
But
I
like
know.
previous Dante
Yeah,
Exum,
previous Exum.
I still can't believe I wrote for this day. It looks like I'll never be working for the Pistons. I wrote this article back in the day that I said Troy Weaver should be ashamed of himself when it came out for my Substack. I said Troy Weaver was the GM of the Pistons at the time, and I apologize for this, Troy. I was very outspoken. It's a free country. You're doing a better job. Well, maybe not. They've lost like
Well, are
28
they?
in a row,
Are they though?
but they're
Okay.
not. They're not. I said at the time this was the worst draft pick of like or the year after they drafted some other bum. I can't remember which bum they drafted the year before, or the year after. And I said the Pistons draft all of these bums. Cade luckily fell to their lap. Otherwise, they would have
Was it
drafted
Luke
another
Kennard?
bum. They would have drafted no, it wasn't Luke Kennard. Luke Kennard was a decent
Stanley
draft pick. That
Johnson?
actually was not. No, but Stanley, that made sense at the time. I think it was like Josh Jack. No, Josh Jackson was
Oh
Suns
god.
pick. They got him. They got Josh Jackson. But the point
Oh,
here is Killian Hayes was one of the worst draft picks of the 21st century. You had Tyrese Halliburton available. You had so
oh my
many
god.
guys available. And you took, like, I was looking at the time, like, there was not much known about Tyrese Halliburton, but I watched his tape at Iowa State, and I could tell you he was way better than Killian Hayes at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
There was no doubt about it. I saw Killian Hayes play one international game, and I said, this guy is a straight up bump. He is never going to be good in the NBA. Like, and Hater Central agreed because that's the whole page is about him
Hater
now.
Central,
But
yeah.
yeah, the fact of the matter is like he knows this. He's a basketball guy. Like he's a stats guy. He loved Bilal too, the Washington
Mhm.
guy. But I think
Yeah.
Bilal could actually have an offensive game a little bit, more than the other guys. Everyone wants the Kawhi prospect, right? They want him to
Everybody
flourish into
talks
Kawhi,
about that.
but very rarely can a guy ever flourish into one. By the way, one of the best mid-range scorers in NBA history. Like you understand how hard he had to work on his craft to become that.
Right, right.
Um, like they
He didn't
always said,
just kinda like he
Patrick,
was under yeah, he was underrated coming
bro,
out of
like
the draft.
bro, like everyone was like the only guy that I can see that came even like halfway there, and they predicted that was Jalen Brown because he had no offensive game, and now he
Yeah.
has. We talk crap about him, but he's a great offensive player. Like he finally turned into that. It's actually gotten worse defensively since college. Almost it seems like Jalen Brown, but I digress. But like Patrick Williams, they're like, oh, just give him some time. That's Kawhi Leonard-esque. Like, bro, like you know how many people are Kawhi Leonard? Like we got to stop looking for Kawhi Leonards and LeBron Jameses and look at guys that can help you win basketball
Right,
games.
thank
Jaime
you.
Jaquez, Christian
Oh
Brown,
my god.
like
Okay.
guys like that, like Jaquez, Brown, like impactful rookies, bro. Like you know how many Derek
Jason
Lively,
Wallace.
like is Derek or is Kason Wallace and Derek Lively ever going to win an MVP? No, no,
No,
but to win you a
no.
championship. They'll help win you a championship though. Like you stack guys
Jordan
like that up,
Hawkins?
they help you win championships. Did everyone look at KCP in the draft and was like, look, I
No.
think Contavious Caldwell Pope is going to be an NBA
Was that the
MVP?
draft pick you were
No,
talking about?
but
That was a
no, but that
Pistons
was a
pick.
good draft pick. That was a Pistons pick. I don't know if it was Troy Weaver though. I have to look,
Oh,
but
okay.
KCP can help you win a championship.
Right.
They got to change the draft process. You can't just look for the home run pick every time. Like you need a guy that's going to do things for you that like that's why I was mad about the Hood Jafino pick. Is like I saw some upside, but I said the guy can't play in an NBA game right now. He's not ready. I don't like him as a prospect. I think he has limited upside because he's a two guard that tries to play the one. I mean, he was my 30 something ranked prospect, and I had him in my mock going 26, and they took him at
Mhm.
17. I was always like Pojemski or Jaquez or Whitmore, one of those
Yeah.
three, and they took none of them. So no,
Ugh,
I dug.
dude.
Even Chris Murray would have been fine there. I mean, like, dude,
Yeah, dude,
I
even
like
he can
I
play.
would have been fine with. I would have loved Jet Howard to fall to them. I still think
Mm,
Jet's really good. He just doesn't get
doesn't
time. I
get
mean,
playing
imagine
time.
his shooting on the Lakers. But they basically got a de facto draft pick with Cam Reddish anyways, so I think it works itself out. They're kind of reinventing him. But anything you want to add before we get out of here?
No, I mean, I think we hit everything. I don't think there's anything outstanding that we need. I mean, the top
Oh,
of
John
I think
Collins, Clipper.
no, John. I mean, yes, but who are you going to trade? PJ Tucker and Brandon Boston Jr. for John Collins? Danny Ainge is not going to take that, although he did take a
He
free Russell
should.
Westbrook. I don't know why. But yeah, I mean, I
What
think
do you
we hit
mean? It's not like
everything.
it helped
What?
us out that much. It's not like it
It
helped the
did.
Lakers out
What?
that. Not in the Western Conference Finals. It didn't.
Well, no, but I'm saying just getting rid of the asset and letting that's like that was the biggest win of the trade was you got rid of
Oh
Russell
yeah, yeah,
Westbrook
yeah. And
and you got
Vanderbilt
rid of
can
the
play.
asset and you got Vanderbilt and you let Reeves has a bigger role. Like that was the biggest thing. Like you let Reeves have a bigger role on the offensive
Yeah,
end. So you can let him have
that's
more
done
minutes.
wonders for the team. They
Exactly.
don't have 15 wins this year so far without Reeves. Like They have
Yeah.
5 if Reeves isn't on the team. Like Reeves is almost becoming as important to the Lakers as AD and LeBron, and no one wants to admit it because he's
Which is
some
why it's
white dude from
ridiculous that
Oklahoma.
he's in trade rumors. What for what? Don't
He's
do
a
that.
he's the
Stop.
I'll tell you right now, I was the first person to say this, not Skip Bayless. I was and there's evidence. We can go back. He is the Brock Purdy of the NBA.
Oh,
No one
yeah.
wants to admit it. No one wants to admit that he's really good and he's kind of a superstar type player. No one wants to admit his talent. Well, not you know what I mean. Like stop. Like he's a top 50 player. Brock Purdy's
Yeah,
actually a superstar
yeah,
though. So
I know
maybe we
what
have
you
to
mean.
change the comparison. Maybe we have to change the comparison right now
Brock
because
Purdy
Brock
is not
Purdy
a
looks like Kurt Warner right now. I mean, some of the throws he makes are like freaking crazy. Like there's like
Yeah.
very few quarterbacks in history that can make those throws. So maybe we'll change the comparison. But the fact of the matter is they slept on Brock Purdy. They slept on Austin Reeves too late to undrafted round
Mm.
guys, right? The Reeves is, by the way, a top 50 NBA player. You can't name 49 players more impactful to winning than Austin Reeves. That's how I gauge it. I don't want to hear, guys that can score the rock. I don't want to hear guys like, oh, Kyle Kuzma is a better basketball player. Does he impact winning more than Austin Reeves? No. So at the end of the day, like people have to realize like Reeves is here to stay. He's a basketball player that's going to help win championships for years to come. That's what I'll end it on. You have
Yeah,
anything to
that's
add there? You agree?
no, I completely agree. I think Austin Reeves is one of those guys. It's like, sure, he's not the superstar. He's not going to be that number one guy on a team. But the things that he puts up and the things that he gets them out of, a lot of times their offense is stagnant. Austin Reeves just handles the ball, runs a pick and roll, and scores. He gets to the rim and draws a foul. He creates a turnover, whatever it may be. Austin Reeves is that kind of value to a Lakers team that needs that kind of guy. Like we've always said, every contender needs a guy like Austin Reeves, like Bruce Brown, like I'm blanking out, like a Derek White, some guys like that. They need guys like that. So sure, he's not going to be viewed as a superstar. He's not going to be viewed as this some guy, but giving you 14, 15 a game and being that kind of de facto third guy on a Laker team that needs him, sure he's valuable. Sure, you should keep him. Don't trade that kind of asset for a guy like Caruso. I mean, maybe Caruso, but Levine
No,
or
whoa, whoa, whoa,
DeRozan.
whoa, whoa. No, the
Maybe.
goal is to have Caruso and Reeves. You give anything but Reeves, Davis, and LeBron for Caruso. I'm fine giving Rui for Caruso at this point.
Oh, wow.
I
I
love
love
Rui, but
Rui,
like
so I
they
can't.
don't play him enough. Ham does
See,
Ham
that's the
thinks
other thing.
Rui
The
Ham
rotation's
thinks Rui
way out of whack.
participate. Look. Ham still believes Rui participated in World War II, like straight up. Like I don't know why he doesn't play him. Like that
It's
was like
true.
a
Why? Why
thousand years
not?
ago. Like why do they think Rui was a part of Pearl Harbor? Like let's
Yeah,
be come
dude.
on. The guy is like 25. He treats him like he's a
He's such a
domestic
good
threat
player.
to
He's a
America.
great mid-range player.
He
He can play good
not
defense.
just a
He can hit
good
from the
player.
outside.
He's not like just a good player. He's like he has like a Kawhi Leonard type mid range, like midi. Like he's good. He's like really a talented guy. We saw that against the Memphis
Credit
series,
to Phil Handy.
and Darvin Ham's treating him like a terrorist. Like I don't know
Yeah.
why.
Well, no, Darvin Ham
He
is the
should
one that's
be
being a terrorist.
he should be the fourth option on the Lakers. I don't care what anybody says. It should be Davis, LeBron, Reeves, and then undisputed fourth option should be Rui Hachimura.
Rui's
And I think
so
most of
good.
Lakers Nation is. I don't I
This is
don't
when
I
you
don't want to
do
hear
play
the
them. This is
D'Angelo
when you
Russell
should play the younger guys and let them get run.
early. Play Max Christie. I don't care.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's fine.
I just
That's what
the
I'm saying.
last thing I'll say here, the thing I don't like about Ham a lot of time, I think he's a good basketball coach. I don't think
Yeah,
he's a
I do
great
too.
basketball
It's
coach.
so
And
weird.
I think it's for this reason. He'll play Jackson Hayes 30 minutes one game and then 1 minute the next.
Dude, I don't
Like
get it. I don't get why he does
like
that. It's just
or like Christian Wood 30 minutes and 1 minute the net. Like what
and he
Max
does
Christie
good. It's
30
like the
minutes,
thing
one
is
minute
like
the
these
next.
guys play well. They play well and then he
Well, it's
takes them
like
out and doesn't play. They get DNPs the
it's like
next game. It's like why?
Rui gets 15 minutes one game and then 30 the next and then 15, even though he scored like 25 points. Like to me, it
Oh
makes
my
no sense. But anyways, it's been the Baller Sports Dialogue podcast via what is it, StreamYard, huh?
StreamYard,
Or is it
yeah.
StreamYard, baby? Let's go, StreamYard. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back in studio hopefully next week. So
Mhm.
after Christmas, happy holidays to all. I'm very thankful for you guys.
this?